Okay, I decided to do another quick video on the remaining 5 or 6 minutes of my drive because I turned on NPR, National Public Radio, for those of you who aren't in the States, and it was either listen to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which I find really annoying, or make another video. So I decided to make another video. So this is just a short little idea, but I was thinking about how, actually I was thinking of two people. I was thinking of PurpleHaze 5995, who I mentioned in the last video, and Jeffrey McMahon, who has a great channel, and you should, of course, if you haven't checked him out, please go check his channel out. I was thinking about them. They're very different collectors. They have very different collections. But there's something that I've seen that's similar in them that I also see in myself. And in my comment to PurpleHaze about his 3 Rolex collection and his desire for a 4th Rolex, you know, I made the comment that, well, why don't you check out other watches? But then as I was writing that, I was thinking, well, it sounds like you love Rolex, and there's almost a Rolex process that you need to complete before you consider anything else. Now, it may be that PurpleHaze will always my guess is Rolex will always be his favorite brand. I mean, you never know, but he seems like he probably does pretty well financially with his collection, and that he's considering a watch that's very high-end. And he likes that style, that classic Rolex luxury watch style. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if once he kind of completes the Rolex cycle for himself, he gets to a point where he has this really great 4-watch Rolex collection. If after a time of satiation and fulfillment, he all of a sudden starts thinking, well, what about a Patek? What about a Vacheron Constantin? What about a Blancpain or a Breguet? That he might start thinking outside of the Rolex box. Now, again, I'm not judging him one way or the other, but my point that I'm trying to what I'm trying to pinpoint about this is that he's not wanting any other watches other than Rolex right now. And that's probably not only because he just loves Rolex and they make great watches and all that, but because he's within a Rolex cycle. It's what he's been focusing on. And that until he completes that cycle, complete as in, you know, come to a point where the cycle has ended, if not his interest in Rolex has ended, which I don't think will happen. Only then might he will his tastes and interest open up to other brands and other watches. And I was thinking about it's a similar thing, but in a very different context for Jeffrey McMahon, who, as anyone who watches his channel knows, is a chronic repurchaser. Jeffrey, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. You do it yourself, so I do it with love. Jeffrey currently owns his 5th Seiko Sumo, and we're not talking about different variations of the Sumo. The same black dial Sumo he's purchased 5 times. He's in the process, I think, of repurchasing a couple of Citizen Grand Tourings. One of them would be his 3rd time, and the other would be his 2nd time. I don't want to steal your thunder, Jeffrey, but I wanted to mention this for this video. And he talks about it, he complains about it, but he continues to do it. Buying, selling, and repurchasing the same watches. And I haven't been such a stalker that I've gone over Jeffrey's purchases and and seen what he's bought in the last year. But my guess is that most of the watches he's bought, at least in the last 6 months or so, are watches he's already owned. So he's kind of going around in circles. But I'm wondering if this is a cycle as well. If he is going through a cycle of I guess you could say tier 3A watches, the $500 to $1,000 range watches. And he's trying to figure out what works for him, what he really likes, what's going to last. And the tricky part is, as Jeffrey has mentioned before, and I think with the Sumo, that, and he and I have talked about this, that you almost have to be ready for a watch before you buy it. You have to, your collection has to be ready to receive it, and your mind, your tastes and your interests have to be open to it at that time. So sometimes you'll buy a watch, and you'll be like, yeah, this is a great watch, but it just doesn't fit my collection right now, or it's not exactly what I'm craving right in this moment. So then you sell it, and then a year later you come back around to that same watch, and you realize that it's the right time to have that watch. I used to really like, I still do really like, Certina's DS Action Diver chronograph, which is, I've never seen it's a European, Certina's a brand, they're like a tier 3 brand that's more popular in Europe. We don't really have them in the United States. I mean, you can buy them, because people buy them on, you can get everything shipped overseas, but it's only recently that they showed up on Joma Shop, and for a pretty good price for that watch. And so I was thinking of like, wow, it's finally available new for a good price. Maybe I should just buy it. But and I was thinking of that, or the Seiko Marine Master 300 meters, and Jeffrey pointed out to me, or reminded me, that, well, the Marine Master would fit your collection much more than the Certina, even though the Certina was sort of like, there was more allure for me because it was unavailable and then available. So there was almost like the, when something becomes available or is on sale, it becomes more desirable than it might actually be. So, but I realized that the Certina wouldn't be the right watch for me right now. Maybe down the line, or maybe it was the right watch a year ago, and I missed my chance. But so that's a little bit of a offshoot of what I was trying to focus on in this video, which is that we have to go through our cycles. PurpleHaze is not, whether or not he ever gets another brand other than Rolex, it's not the right move for him to force it and look at Pateks or to look at Breguets or whatever. Even though he's focused on this one brand, which is, the premier luxury brand, and there's such an amazing diversity of tier 5 and tier 6 watches. But at the same time, you got to follow your heart, right? You got to follow what is calling to you. And for him, it wouldn't make sense to look at these other brands because he's within this Rolex cycle. Now, maybe he'll so-called complete the cycle and then have this quote-unquote perfect ultimate Rolex collection, and he'll either say, well, I'm done, I'll never get another watch, or maybe not for a few years, and then maybe it'll be another Rolex, or maybe at that point he will be in a space where, well, I'm ready for something different. But I think until he gets to that sense of completion, he wouldn't be ready or wanting something different. And I think it's the same thing with Jeffrey, because I and others have mentioned to him, well, the reason you keep on rebuying the same watches is because what you really need to do is step it up. You need to step up the price point, so to speak, the tier even. Jeffrey has pretty much limited himself to the under 1K range, which are sort of the lower end tier 3 watches. And he's looked at some of the higher end tier 3 watches like the Seiko Marine Master, the Oris Titan chronograph, that sort of thing, or even the tier 4 watches like the Omega Planet Ocean, Breitling Super Avenger, those sorts of things. So I think that's true. I think that part of the reason he keeps on circling around and rebuying the same watches is that, that what he needs to do is get something that would be a little more satisfying long term. Now, you could argue that then you'd just be doing the same thing at a higher tier, but I think it at least slows down the process and you become more focused on, well, I'm going to buy something that's really quality that I really, really want, and stop getting things that I just kind of want, or I really want for a short time and then stop wanting. Now, I think part of it is just the game of it. We like the drama. We like to it's the chase. And this is perhaps why 98% of the people watching this are male. And I don't mean to be sexist in this way, but it's the old traditional, the chase. Like it goes back to our biology of being hunter-gatherers, where the males would go off and hunt, and we'd chase things, and then we get them, and then we rest and eat and so forth. Or we'd be chasing the woman, right? And then the woman would be creating the culture, creating the community. Now that's traditional. Now we've broken that down, and we get to explore more who we are. Men get to take on traditional female roles and qualities, and vice versa. And I'm very for that, for everyone self-defining and taking on whatever you want, and that ultimately all those traditional gender roles and identities are breaking down, and we have more freedom now. Facebook has 50 plus gender or sexual identities, and I'm like, viva la difference. Like I'm all for, I don't want to get political here, but I'm all for the diversity of humanity. I think it's great that there's so much variety and diversity, and I'm always happy to meet somebody who's outside of my preconceived notions of what people are, right? So, but my point here is that there's still this biology, at least in most men, and perhaps in some women, to want to chase something down, to want to hunt something down, the quest, going out there, getting your prey, and then you get it, and you're satisfied, but then you're no longer satisfied, and you want to keep on going. So maybe on some level, I don't know, I don't mean to psychoanalyze you, Jeff, but maybe on some level, you can do that with tier 3 watches in a way that you couldn't do with the higher end tier 3 to tier 4 watches, just because of money, because it's harder to do that, at least for me. For some people, it's all relative, you know what I mean? Some people can buy tier 4, tier 5 watches like they're candy. So maybe there's that there, but even that's a cycle. Maybe at some point, Jeffrey, like PurpleHaze, will get to a place where he's complete within that specific cycle of wanting to hunt and getting that thrill, and maybe he'll say, okay, I'm done with this, and now I want to really focus on, well, what are the best possible watches that I can afford by allocating my resources in a certain way. And I have my own cycle. I'm not saying that I've completed these cycles. Everyone has a cycle, but sometimes I think there's this cycle that we get to, and then maybe the watch ninja is the person who's completed that cycle, right? To use Jeffrey's term of the watch ninja, the person who has, I was thinking more, who's attained watch nirvana. You know, who is sort of like, okay, I'm happy with what I have. I may still change it up every once in a while, but there's no need to, you know, I'm not chasing anything right now. Unless something comes to me, and then I'm like, oh yeah. All right, anyways, I've arrived home, and I think we're gonna go for a hike or something. So I will talk to you all later. Okay, I decided to do another quick video on the remaining 5 or 6 minutes of my drive, because I turned on NPR, National Public Radio, for those of you who aren't in the States, and it was either listen to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which I find really annoying, or make another video. So I decided to make another video. So this is just a short little idea, but I was thinking about how, actually I was thinking of two people. I was thinking of PurpleHaze 5995, who I mentioned in the last video, and Jeffrey McMahon, who has a great channel. And you should, of course, if you haven't checked him out, please go check his channel out. I was thinking about them. They're very different collectors. They have very different collections. But there's something that I've seen that's similar in them that I also see in myself. And in my comment to PurpleHaze about his 3 Rolex collection and his desire for a 4th Rolex, you know, I made the comment that, well, why don't you check out other watches? But then as I was writing that, I was thinking, well, it sounds like you love Rolex, and there's almost a Rolex process that you need to complete before you consider anything else. Now, it may be that PurpleHaze will always just, I mean, my guess